go about choosing your roles? Like, do you do a bit of research? Be like, I want to be this guy, or do you try to put yourself out there as much
You know
as
what, my
possible?
friend? I would love to think that I was important enough that I could choose my own role. No. I always kind of smile when people say, you know, what made you decide to play this? I'm like, oh, and I didn't decide anything. I auditioned for 6 guys, and this is the one they gave me. There are certainly characters I've wanted to play.
Yeah.
Tom. I wanted to play Tom so bad. It's unnatural. I mean, and again, if you've heard the story, I apologize, but it's the case. It's the truth. Caitlin Glass, who played Haruhi and directed Aurora, called me one day and said, a friend of mine introduced me to this show. It's flippin' hilarious and awesome and wonderful, and there's a character that reminds me of you. So I start thinking, oh, I wonder what kind of character. I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what Caitlin thinks of me. How does Caitlin see me? When somebody says this character, that's you. You want to go and watch it, right? So she gave me a disc with 4 or 5 episodes. Now, by the way, it had not been licensed. In other words, there wasn't any dubbing in English. This was long before it was even licensed by an English company. It was just the Japanese. So I watched these episodes. In the first couple of episodes, you know, Tamaki is, you know, beautiful. Inside and out. And, you know, suave and romantic with the ladies. And I'm watching this going, yeah! Caitlin likes me. And then I got to this episode where Tamaki is in a ball in the corner. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Which one of these Tamakis reminds her of me?
Whole package.
But suffice it to say, I fell in love with the show and that character. Which is a bad idea before it's even licensed. You know what I mean? Kind of jinx yourself. Get your heart set on. You know what I mean? It would be like if you guys are standing out in the hallway, right? Getting ready to come in here. And you're like, man, that 4th seat in on the 4th row. That's my seat. That seat, man. I want it so bad. What are the chances that you know what I mean? It's going to be empty when you walk in here. It's not likely. So I love Tamaki, but I was like, you know, if this thing gets licensed by a show in Los Angeles, because at the time I was living in Houston, I won't get to be in it. And if it gets licensed by a company in Vancouver, I won't even be able to audition for it. Well, as luck would have it, Funimation licensed it. But even then, I wasn't cast. And there are 100 guys auditioning, you know? And then Caitlin got chosen to be the director. Now you would think, right, oh, you're in, right? She said, that's you. You would think. She called me one day, I'll never forget it, you guys. Oh my gosh. I was coming out of ADB. I had just recorded something at ADB. It was dark. I'll never forget it. I can see it like it was yesterday. I rode my motorcycle to ADB. And I came out and I remember thinking, oh man, it's dark. You know, I was hoping I'd get out before it was dark. But I rode my bike and I came out, and before I got on my bike, my phone rang and it was Caitlin. She said, listen, I want to talk to you. I know you're coming up to audition for Aurora in a couple of days. And she said, I want to talk to you. She said, I know that you really want to play this role, and I know that you love it, and I know that I said that this character reminds me of you. But it's an ensemble cast. In other words, I have to choose all of the actors that work together as a unified group. You know what I mean? They have to all sound good together. They have to fit well together. Funimation, and I walked in, and Caitlin said, "Well, we know who you want to audition for." No pressure, right? I was terrified. I had recorded probably 100 shows by that time, and I was really nervous because I wanted it so bad. So I did my, I did the audition, and then Caitlin said something to me that was like running a stake through my heart. Oh. She said, "Okay, anyone else you want to read for?" Anyone else? There isn't anyone else! So I'm like, okay, I'll read for one of the twins, and I'll read for Kyoya. But I So I left, and I was at a convention in Hawaii, and I got a phone call from her, and she said, "I just wanted to call and congratulate you. You're going to be playing down." I was like, "I will serve you forever." Of all the shows I've done, I've probably savored Oron more than any other show. You understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, when you're doing it, you realize how neat it is, and you just want to wring every bit of the experience out of it. See, with Full Metal and some other shows, it wasn't until I was way into them that I realized how special they were. But Oron, I knew, like before I was even cast, how wonderful that show is. So as I recorded, I really, really, really savored that experience. Now, who asked the last question? You did, didn't you? Yeah. I want to go kind of boy develop here. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I may probably get these a lot, but seeing as how you're like new with would you like maybe like say something about
Oh no! How many of you have heard it so far? It's not enough people. I kind of have this thing where I don't want to do too much, voice lines from things that some people know more about it. Like it's so funny to me. It's so funny to me. Somebody will come to me and go, "I heard you play. So I heard you play Broly in Dragon Ball Z." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Say something." And I'll say to him, Have you seen it?" He goes, "No." I could say anything. You would know. You'd be like, "Takara!" You wouldn't know if that's what he sounds like or not, right? So I kind of have this thing where I like a voice and a character to get out there for a while.
Am I able to ask a question?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Of course, Steve.
Okay. I wasn't prepared for this.
Quick, make up another question.
Do you have to do you go into Rooster Teeth to go voice act for Crow?
No, actually, I record the lines at my home. I have a studio in my home, and I record them and send them into them.
Does that make it difficult?
Yeah. Well, it's more difficult than it would be. In fact, it's funny, we were talking about this morning. Before I left my hotel, I had to record a couple of auditions for Bang Zoom in LA. And I was telling our friend there that I hate auditioning remotely. Because if you're not standing in front of the director, you don't know what he wants.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like taking a shot, right? So if you record it remotely and just send him a file, you don't have the opportunity for the director to go, "Okay, that was pretty good, but let's drop the pitch a little bit." Or let's make him a little more nerdy, or let's make him a little more flamboyant. You don't have the chance to dial in those adjustments because you're not there in front of him. So anytime I send in an audition, I'll write at the end, "Please do two things for me. One, confirm you got it, confirm you got the file. And number two, if you want to hear anything differently, just tell me. Just let me know." It's hard, it's difficult sometimes to know what a director wants. And so when I'm recording Crow,